where we talk about all things to do with designing and developing and delivering your knowledge online. Talking about how you can get that knowledge out of your head and turn it into an online course, turn it into some sort of learning experience that your participants are going to love. Okay, so looking at a few different things last week, and some other things that sort of were coming up at me were Facebook groups and other things, and part of it was coming up was around this idea of actual design and what is that design. There's a lot of stuff out there in terms of how do I market my course and how do I structure my course, and certainly that the structuring of the course is a huge thing that's really important, and it's one of the big things that we go through our Signature Solution Accelerator. But one of the things that obviously falls down quite a lot is around the design piece. So I reached into the vault and grabbed a presentation that I developed a number of years ago, which was a bit of an anti-look at learning design and looking at what we can do around learning design. And this one is really focused on how can we lose a learner. So having a bit of a fun look at all the different ways that we can actually disengage our learners, how we can actually turn them off. Because unfortunately, we see a lot of bad design out there. We see a lot of people that are creating courses that are taking advice from other people that maybe are not necessarily the best people to be getting advice from. Maybe they're not actually learning designers. Just because they've created a course doesn't mean they're actually a learning designer. Just because I can change the oil and stuff in my car doesn't make me a mechanic. So, need to think about who you're talking to. So this is one I developed, and it was really, when I developed it, was really based, pulling in from my 20 plus years experience working in learning development, working with large corporates, universities, registered training organizations, and just seeing, the different examples of what is good learning and some examples of some bad learning. So I thought, today's Tuesday Talk, let's jump in and let's have a look at 10 ways that we can lose a learner. Some instructional design tips to disengage our learners. Because when we're talking about engagement, we're talking about the amount of physical and psychological energy that they devote to the learning experience. And obviously disengagement is obviously then reducing that energy. And if there's no energy there, if they're disengaged, they're not going to pay attention, they're not going to retain the information, they're not going to learn. And so what we're going to look at is all the different ways that we can actually reduce that energy, where we can actually cause that disengagement to happen. So the first one that we want to do, the first way to lose a learner is don't excite them. Okay, we don't want to get them excited. We want to make the experience pretty standard, fairly dull. The last thing that we want to do is get them excited about what they're doing. The alternative that we see is where you actually create something that provides a with them, or what's in it for me, provides something that hooks them early, provides an opportunity to tell a story. And doing all of these things is going to get them excited. If they see the with them, if they see the benefits for what they're learning, then they're going to be engaged. It's going to switch them on. If we hook them early, if we get them excited by that with them, by showing them the benefits, by showing them something that makes them lean in and get excited, such as telling a good story, they are some things that is going to engage people. So the first tip to disengage our learners is don't excite them. The second one is then we want to overwhelm them with content. Okay. One of the greatest ways that we can really disengage them is just give them so much content. Just give them all the content that they might need. Don't worry about what they might need right now. Give them the stuff that they're going to need in 3 months' time, in 6 months' time, in 12 months' time. Let's just give it all to them right now. Let's fill them up with heaps and heaps and heaps of content. We're going to overwhelm them with content. This thing, cognitive overload, is going to kick in. There's only so much information that we can retain in our brains. so much information that we're going to be able to retain. And if we overwhelm with content, then we're guaranteed to have them disengaged. We're guaranteed to get them to switch off. They won't know what to know. They won't know what to focus on. They won't know what to remember. And they'll become completely overwhelmed. The alternative to that is look at building content that is bite-sized, that is focused on a single problem, that's focused on an individual solution. This is going to mean that there's going to be the ability for greater retention. By giving people less content that's focused on a single problem, they're going to be more engaged with it. They're going to be able to retain the necessary information. There's a great quote, the memory is like a crazy woman that hoards colored rags and throws away food. Our memory works in some weird and wonderful ways. And if we overwhelm people with content, we give them heaps and heaps of content, well, we can't be guaranteed with what they're going to actually remember. So if you don't want to disengage them, then look at bite-sized pieces of content, and that will be ensuring that we're not overwhelming them, which means that most of that content that we give them is going to be retained as part of that. So yeah, second tip, if we want to disengage or lose our learners, is overwhelm them with content. Okay. Third tip is we don't want to provide any relevance. Okay, we're just going to put in some content. Don't worry about context. Okay, you hear the saying, content is king. Okay, yep. So let's just give them the content. Don't worry about any context, and don't worry about making it relevant. Okay, don't worry about who the learners are. Don't worry about investigating, their personas. Don't worry about finding out what their skills and knowledge is. Just give them content that we think they're going to need. Don't worry about what they think they need. Okay, we're just going to give them content, and if it doesn't matter, if it's not relevant, okay, we're giving them the content anyway. Okay, so great way. Tip number 3 to disengage our learners, to lose our learners, is to provide no relevance. The alternative to that is to actually build something that's going to provide relevance, that's going to allow them to relate it back to what they're doing, that's going to, and rather than thinking about content is king, thinking about the idea of context is king, building context into what we're doing, building in opportunities for them to relate it back to their prior experiences, relate it back to their current experiences, giving them opportunities to reflect on what they're doing and where this new piece of information is going to come in, and add that relevance. And also providing information to them that is only relevant. So that's the alternative, the flip side to providing no relevance. Thinking about who these people are, what are their skills and knowledge. And last week I talked a lot about the persona. So it's really a matter of having a look at that, building in that persona and making sure that the solution aligns. That's what's going to happen. You do that and you're probably going to engage people. But hey, we're looking about how we can actually disengage them. So tip number 3, provide no relevance. Okay. Tip number 4, okay, we want to use big words and passive voice. Okay, great way to disengage people. Throw in all of this stuff. Okay, there's a thing called the flesh reading scale that you can apply. Okay, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to throw that out. We don't want to worry about the reading level of the content. We want to use big words and passive voice in such a way that what they're reading, what they're engaging with, is going to disengage them. It's going to switch them off. Okay, all of that big information, especially if there's lots of content, it's just going to overwhelm them. So tip number 4, to lose a learner, to disengage them, is use big words and passive voice. The alternative is look at where we use small words. Look at using active voice and make sure that we don't have any jargon in there. Okay, we could go back and look at the flesh reading scale and looking at, okay, can we actually build this at a grade of, year 9 grade level of reading, which is one of the things the Flesch reading scale recommends, so that we have an appropriate level of writing and reading in our content. Okay. The alternative for that is, yes, that we are going to build a resource that is going to be easier to read. If it's easier to read, if it's got more active voice, if there's smaller words, they're going to be able to take it on board. They're going to retain it better. They're going to learn better. There's going to be a little bit more retention happening there. But yeah, we want to disengage them, big words and passive voice. Okay. Number 5, the other great way to really lose a learner that we really want to do to disengage them is make it easy for them. Okay. We don't want to have any roadblocks. We don't want to have anything that's going to challenge them. We don't want to have anything that's going to challenge their thinking. We just want to make it so easy for them. Okay. That so easy that they're actually going to switch off. It's going to be like, I know this. Oh, this is not easy. This is, and they'll stop paying attention because it's so easy for them to just move through the course. Okay. So we want to disengage them. We want to make it really easy for them to go there. Okay. The big alternative is actually building stuff into the program and providing this opportunity for people to fail, providing an opportunity that challenges them. Okay. And fail, as you can see on the screen there, is a great way. It's the first attempt in learning. Okay. If we think about back to when we first started riding our bikes, okay, it's probably no one actually jumped on the bike the first time and managed to ride it and without any problems. There's probably falls, you had, injuries, all sorts of things. You probably needed help at the start with, maybe training wheels or, mum or dad holding the bike for you. Okay. We had a first attempt. We failed. Okay. And by building in this to the learning experience, giving people an opportunity to fail, it gives them an opportunity to learn, gives them an opportunity to challenge themselves, gives them an opportunity to think about what they've done wrong and to look at ways that they can solve that and provide that solution. So the alternative is then to let them learn through failure. Provide challenges. Give them an opportunity. Doesn't matter if it might be a little bit hard at the start. Certainly you don't want to make it so hard that it completely disengages them. But certainly look at providing some small challenges that is going to, that they're going to be able to learn from, that they're going to be able to build on their knowledge, build on their experience, and increase their skills and knowledge. Give them the opportunity to learn through failure. Give them opportunity to test, to try things, and that's actually going to provide that opportunity to engage them. But yeah, if we don't want to disengage, if we want to disengage them, if we want to lose our learners, then we need to make it easy. Okay. Number 6 might look a bit weird. We don't want to use any crap. Okay. So what I mean by crap is we're looking at crap is basically looking at providing visuals that provide contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Okay. If we actually build this in, if we actually provide visuals that provide things to contrast, it's going to attract people's attention. If we use repetition, repeating common elements, it's going to make it easy for people to move through the course without having them to think about how do I navigate through that course. It's going to providing that alignment and proximity is going to really make things easier to retain that information. Okay, so we certainly want to look at making sure that we don't have any sort of good visuals as part of that if we're looking at disengaging our learners. So yeah, using bad or no visuals. Okay, so we want to disengage our learners. Well, look, throw visuals in. I mean, visuals can be a powerful medium. So if we actually use them wrong, if we actually don't use them we use the wrong visuals, we put the wrong images up that don't convey any meaning to the content that we're putting in there, then certainly that's going to have an impact on how people are learning and how engaged they are. They're going to look at a visual, it's not going to make sense to them, it's going to confuse them, and that's going to lead to them being disengaged. Or maybe we just use no visuals at all. There's some great research out there, Mayer's multimedia principles, etc., that talks about images and words combined are more effective than images. But hey, we're talking today about how we disengage them, so we don't want to do that. We don't want to put images and stuff and make it easier. We're just going to put lots and lots of text on the screen. So principle 7 to disengage your learners is use bad or no visuals. The alternative to that obviously is using quality visuals and using visuals that convey the message. Look at and looking at visuals that again are relevant to the learners. Okay? Just because you look at a visual and think, I understand the message of it, you've got to think about, will my users understand the message of it? But certainly having quality visuals that are going to attract attention, that are going to really make people stand up and look and go, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to that's attracted my attention. That's really going to switch my brain on, and that's going to help me with the engagement piece. Number 8, one of the best ways we can disengage learners is don't give them a choice. Okay, we're just going to assume that people have to go through a learning experience there, or everyone's going to start at point A and everyone has to finish at point B, and we're not going to give them any choice. Don't worry about the experiences they might already have. Don't worry about the knowledge or skill levels that they have. We're just going to get everyone to start at the same point and finish at the same point. And don't give them a choice to jump ahead. They've got to go through it in a certain way. They've got to go through it in a very much a lockstep method. Look at locking it down for them. Don't give them a choice, and they've got to move through that. That's one of the great ways we can disengage people, because then we've got someone that's got a certain level of knowledge, and the first part of the thing that they might want to skip, we don't want them to skip it, but they might want to skip it because they know it all. What that's going to do is that's really going to help us to disengage them. They're going to already switch off because it's like, I already know this. By the time they get to the stuff that they don't know that is valuable to them, because we haven't given them a choice to move through the process, then they're switched off, they're disengaged, and they're not going to actually engage with the rest of the content that's going to be valued. So yeah, number 8, don't give them a choice. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is actually build an experience that allows them to choose, allows people to come in and pull the content that they need. Maybe we can actually build an experience that gives people the knowledge, or gives them the content, and they can go in and pull it. Gives people the experience, the opportunity to maybe go and apply that knowledge through games, activities, other things like that. But certainly, the alternative to that point is giving them the choice, giving them the opportunity to pull the content. It's a bit like when you walk into a library. You don't have a librarian hand you a book and say you must read this book. And when you go to start reading that book, you don't have to start reading it at page 1, and you can't read page 3 until you've read page 1 and 2. No, but unfortunately, when we build a lot of the courses, what we often see is it gets locked down and people can't progress. So if you want to disengage them, don't give them a choice. If you actually want to make it engaging, look at how you can give them a choice. Look at how you can allow them to pull the content that they need. And then number 9, another good way to really disengage our learners, great instruction design tip to lose a learner, is make them lonely. And certainly we see this working really well when you're building out these self-paced courses that people are going through and doing on their own time. Okay, we don't want to do anything that would encourage them to collaborate and be social with others. We don't want to encourage any sort of social learning. We just want them to be lonely, sitting there on their own, on the computer, moving through the content, the overwhelm of content, all on their own. They don't have any opportunity to talk to anyone. and to collaborate or share their knowledge with anyone. So we need to make them lonely so we can lose the learner. Great tip for disengagement. What's the alternative? Well, we encourage discussion. Build exercises, activities that allow people to engage in discussion, that allow for that social learning, allow people to learn from each other and with each other, and give them the opportunity to share their experiences, to share their problems, for other people to provide insights. You can put that into your learning platform, or a Facebook community, or a Slack group, or a whole range of different ways that you can actually encourage this social learning and collaboration. And that's obviously going to allow people to be more engaged. When you look at the big thing, prior to COVID and things, and a lot of people were reluctant to move away from face-to-face training to going into the online or the virtual training. And one of the big things that they felt that they were not going to get was the social learning. Okay, they enjoyed coming to a classroom. They could see someone, they could talk, they could interact with people. This thing is, we are social creatures. We love to be social. We love to learn from and with each other. So if we want to engage them, we want to have a good learning experience, look at how we can actually build that learning experience into it. And then the last tip on how we can lose a learner, great tip to instructional design, a destructional design tip to disengage our learners, is don't ask for any actions. Okay, we want to give them all this information, but we don't want them to do anything with it. Okay, we don't want them to actually go away and action that. We don't want them to actually do any reflective activities or put any of this stuff into place. Okay, we just want them to just do nothing with it. There's no actions resulting as part of that. The alternative is look at providing a call to action, getting people to actually do something after they've learned something. That call to action could be a reflective activity. It could be going and putting something in place. It could be going and having a social conversation with someone around their thoughts and how they can apply it. It could be going and teaching someone else about something. So look at all these opportunities to provide practice with them after the learning is happening. Look at how you can actually engage with them after the learning, but certainly having some sort of a call to action there. So that's the alternative, and that's obviously going to allow for greater engagement as part of that process. So 10 tips. If we want to disengage our learners, we want to lose our learners, some great destructional design tips where we want to really switch them off. We want to make it a terrible learning experience. You don't want to excite them. You want to overwhelm them with content. We want to provide no relevance to what they're doing. We want to use big words and passive voice. We want to make it easy for them. We want to make sure that we don't use any crap, any contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity in the way we lay out our content. We want to use bad or no visuals. We don't want to give them any choice. We want to make them lonely, and we don't want to ask for actions. So these are the 10 big tips we can follow that we can learn and disengage our learners. Okay. Now, obviously, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek with that, but look at the alternatives, look at the flip sides to all of these things, okay? So these are all things that can be done, and often we see that they are done by mistake and causing this disengagement to occur. So certainly if you want to create a great learning experience, and a learning experience that people are going to love, that they're going to tell their friends about, that they're really going to be engaged with, then maybe look at each of these tips and look at the alternatives. Look at how you can excite them, how you can hook them, how they can see the benefit, that they want to lean in and they want to do this course because they know that there's some benefit for it. Okay, we want to make sure that there's a suitable amount of content. We don't want to overwhelm them. We don't want to have this cognitive overload happen. We want to make it relevant. A colleague of mine, Ben, talks about being ruthlessly relevant. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're ruthlessly relevant. Okay, we want to make the words small with active voice that people can really easily consume. We want to make it a challenge. Okay, not so challenging that they switch off, but not so easy that they just go, there's nothing in this. Okay, so there needs to be a challenge. We need to provide opportunities to let them fail, to provide the first attempt in learning. We want to use contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity with the content that we lay out on the screens or in our documents, on our PowerPoints, whatever it might be. We want to use good visuals, visuals that are relevant to the content, that are going to help with that retention of information, that are going to help with the excitement. We want to give them a choice on how they consume the content. We want to give them an opportunity to be social with others. And we want to have them undertaking actions as part of that whole process. So yeah, a couple of tips there on around actually really sort of engaging learners when you're actually starting to build out that learning experience. So open it up. If we've got any questions, and as usual, we're streaming to YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook group. Any questions, drop them in the chat there. They should come through with Restream. If you're watching this as a recording, then again, drop your comments in the chat below. We'll see. We've got anyone watching, and throw in any questions you've got there. Okay. Got any questions? Drop them in the chat. We'll go through and address them and answer them as part of that process. Okay. So if you're stuck, if you're looking at how do I actually get this out of my head? How do I, create this course that is going to be engaging, that is going to be of benefit to people? It might be you're stuck an earlier stage. You're stuck with how to structure the course. Well, we're here to help. Okay. If you're interested, jump onto one of our clarity calls. We're really going to give you an opportunity to sort of get unstuck, and we can help you to sort of overcome those barriers to giving you an opportunity to share your expertise. So the link there, and we'll give you an opportunity to go through and have a chat with that. So yeah, thank you. That is our Tuesday talk for this week.